What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, September 11th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:49 Eastern Time here in the United States, and it is the anniversary of the September 11th attacks. So please take a moment out of your day to remember what happened and reflect on that day, regardless of who you think caused those towers to fall, whether it was Al Qaeda or whether it was an inside job, doesn't matter. 3,000 people died. So please remember and reflect on that day. So we have some major breaking news coming in from Washington, D.C. Apparently, the U.S. Capitol Police is responding to an incident at the Democrat National Committee headquarters. This is very unusual. And of course, yesterday we had the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which is a really bizarre situation. The timing of it, literally a day after Russia attacked a NATO country with dozens of drones, Poland. Then suddenly Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. Now we have what I'm hearing is a bomb threat at the Democrat National Committee headquarters. So there's a lot of things going on, and I want to urge you guys to let the dust settle first before you come to any conclusions. And also with the Charlie Kirk situation, whoever assassinated Charlie Kirk was trying to elicit a response, okay? Don't give them what they want, okay? They want you to go into the streets and burn things down and, grab your pitchforks, okay? Don't give them what they want, okay? That's an attempt to antagonize and divide and create a civil war, in my opinion. That's what Charlie Kirk was about. Whoever ordered his assassination, which was a professional assassination. It wasn't just some lone, crazed liberal. Okay, this was a professional hit job. The hitman was probably hired and paid a lot of money. He could be ex-military, ex-sniper, hard to say, but whoever carried out this assassination was not just some crazed lone liberal. Okay, this was a professional hit job, probably planned by some kind of shadow organization, okay? And if this was a professional hit job, the FBI likely will not be able to find the hitman, because that's what these hitmen do for a living. They know how to get away from the law, okay? But nevertheless, there is a person of interest being released by the FBI office in Salt Lake City. Here's a picture of this person of interest. Some guy with shades. Very strange. I hope and pray that they find the scumbag who shot Charlie Kirk. Regardless of his politics, he was a human being. He was a father of 2 kids. And nobody deserves to be assassinated, especially in front of his family. His family was there and witnessed the whole assassination. And here we have a picture showing what appears to be the shooter on top of a roof at the Utah Valley University. You can see the silhouette of the shooter there. You can see that black bump there on the top of the roof. So just a lot of weird things about this whole situation with Charlie Kirk, and now suddenly a bomb threat at DNC headquarters. Very unusual. And I wanted to update you guys on the situation with Poland and the Russian drone attack on Poland. So NATO is not calling this a drone attack. They're calling this a drone incursion. But if it wasn't a drone attack, why did they dispatch fighter jets from 4 allied countries? Okay, initially during the drone attack, we heard that the U.S., Great Britain, Germany, the Netherlands, and Poland were involved in responding to this drone incursion. Okay, 5 of the largest militaries in Europe responded to this, and now the official statement by NATO and Poland is that America was not involved in shooting these drones down, that it was only Poland and the Netherlands. And by the way, Germany was also not involved. They only provided a radar assistance, which is complete BS, and I'm going to prove to you that that is BS right now, because we actually have a screenshot here from a flight tracker. This is a screenshot that I took when this was happening. You can see a U.S. Air Force F-35 was getting aerially refueled over southeastern Poland, and it was actually in distress. It was squawking 7600, which is a communications failure. So we know American F-35s were in the air, and we also heard from some inside sources that British fighter jets were scrambled as well, and potentially also German fighter jets, okay? So I don't know if the U.S. and Germany and Great Britain don't want to be associated with this situation for fear of pissing off Putin, and they want to just say that it was only Poland and the Netherlands. But this is proof that there were various countries assisting with the shoot down of these Russian drones, okay? Now, the Polish Territorial Defense Force, which is like the Polish National Guard, has placed their troops on high alert in the eastern part of the country and the central part of the country. So the areas shaded in red are along the border of Belarus and Ukraine, and they were ordered to report to duty stations within 6 hours of this drone attack. And then the areas shaded in yellow, the troops there were ordered to report within 12 hours, okay? So Poland's military is now on very high alert. We're also hearing that Poland is deploying 40,000 troops to the border of Belarus, and I showed you guys a couple of days ago the massive Polish army buildup on the border of Belarus. Hundreds and hundreds of Polish tanks and artillery and infantry fighting vehicles being moved to the border of Belarus because of this massive exercise that Russia and Belarus are going to be doing, involving 150,000 troops. And if you remember, that's what Russia did before they invaded Ukraine. And Poland has shut down their entire airspace along their border with Belarus and Ukraine, probably to a depth of about 30 miles. So just an entire strip 30 miles wide or so along the entire eastern part of Poland has been shut down, the airspace. And now Latvia has shut down their airspace along their border with Belarus and Russia to a depth of 50 kilometers. Here you can see the shaded areas representing the airspace that has been closed. And here we have video footage of a fighter jet in eastern Poland shooting down a Russian drone. Okay, so look in the center of the video. You'll see this white object. That's some kind of a missile, probably an air-to-air missile. And then you can see right there a bright flash, and that's when it hit the drone. Okay, but I want to remind you guys that as much as NATO says that this was a big success, they shot down maybe 24 drones. Ukraine gets attacked by hundreds of drones, okay, and Ukraine shoots down 90% of them. And NATO got all flustered because of 20 drones. What are they going to do when 500 drones fly towards Poland, okay? And they also used multi-million-dollar missiles and multi-million-dollar assets like stealth fighters to shoot down drones that were made of styrofoam, okay, that cost maybe $1,000 to build. So not a success at all. This was a huge failure. Okay, yes, they were able to down the drones and coordinate their responses, but Putin got the upper hand here over NATO. Okay, he showed, number one, that NATO's a paper tiger. They're not going to respond when Russia sends drones into Poland or other countries. And also that he can send cheap drones into NATO, and NATO's going to have to use their very expensive assets to shoot them down, okay? And here's a picture of one of the drones that crashed in Poland. We're hearing now that as many as 16 drones have been recovered. Okay, 16 locations. And what's very concerning is 4 of the locations where they found the wreckage of these drones were near either Polish military bases or NATO bases. And I'm going to show you exactly where they were downed and everything. Okay, also one of the drones was downed close to the strategic rail line number 65, which is the longest wide gauge rail line in Europe. It connects Poland to Ukraine. Okay, if you know a little bit of history, you'll know that the USSR and the Eastern Bloc countries had different railway gauges, and the USSR did that on purpose, so there was physically no easy way for goods and people and military equipment to move between non-USSR countries and USSR countries, and all they did was they had railway gauges. The actual train tracks were just slightly wider so that trains could not fit on the European or vice versa, okay? But Poland in the 1970s, when they were actually an ally of Russia, they made a deal with Russia to build a wide gauge railway connecting Ukraine and Poland, so this way Russia could move military equipment into Poland if there was a war with NATO, okay? So one of these Russian drones crashed near this strategic rail line that Ukraine uses for economic purposes. They move grain and raw materials and coal into Europe on that rail line. Also, NATO equipment goes into Ukraine on that rail line, okay? So it was clearly a deliberate attack, or at least they were probing to see how close they could get to that rail line before getting shot down. Here's another drone that was found in Poland. Here's another one. And then here's a picture of this house that was hit by a Russian drone. The occupants of this house were not home at the time. It was an elderly couple. Okay, so thank God they weren't home. And interestingly, the whole room is destroyed, but this picture of the Virgin Mary is completely untouched. Isn't that interesting? And then here's the roof of that house. Whatever hit this house had to have a lot of power behind it, because houses in Poland are made of solid concrete blocks. They're not made out of lumber like here in the US. You could see all those blocks on the ground. So had to have been a pretty massive explosion to do that kind of damage. And here's a fragment of an AMRAAM missile, a medium-range air-to-air missile. This is an American missile, and these are very expensive. They cost well over $1 million a piece, and they were used to shoot down drones made out of styrofoam. Absolutely insane. And then here you can see all the locations in Poland where the Russian drones flew into, and you can see the yellow pins are where the wreckage was found. And what's very interesting is up here in northern Poland, there was some wreckage found. And then also in central Poland and southern Poland, there was some wreckage found. One area in particular was as far as 160 miles from the Ukraine-Belarus border. Okay, so my guess is that some of these areas where the drones crashed deeper into Poland, Poland allowed those drones to continue to fly, and they didn't shoot them down because they thought maybe that they were just decoys. They weren't armed, and so they didn't want to waste missiles on decoy drones, is what I'm hearing from Polish sources. And actually the Polish Prime Minister said that they had to prioritize the ones that they thought were armed, and then they let the ones that were unarmed just continue to fly and run out of fuel on their own. Okay, but then there was one up here in northern Poland that crashed right next to a major NATO base in Malbork, where actually the Baltic Air Policing Mission is located. That's where NATO F-35s are stationed. and also where American F-22s are stationed as well. So a very important NATO base up there. And here you can see this Polish military airfield right next to one of the drone crash sites. And then here's another airfield. This is the one in Malbork where the NATO forces are stationed, the stealth fighters. Okay, this is where one of the Russian drones crashed right next to it. And then here's what appears to be some kind of massive Polish munitions depot. And one of the drones crashed right next to that depot. And then here we also have an airfield where a drone crashed right near this airfield. Okay, so clearly it was all planned out by the Russians and it was deliberate. And then here we have a picture of the area where the drone crashed near that strategic rail line. You can see actually a train going through the area on that rail line in this picture, and you can see Polish firemen cordoning off the wreckage here and studying the drone wreckage, and in the background you can see this massive train. Okay, so very, very crazy situation, and this changes the game completely, guys. Russia has now attacked a NATO country, and so far NATO has not responded in any way at all. So Russia's going to continue. They're not going to stop. Okay, so from here on out, we're only going to see more escalation. So this is a huge wake-up call to get prepared, because next time it could be missiles that land in Poland, and then we're going to see Article 5 declared, and then we're going to be in a war with Russia. Okay, so then it's going to be very serious. So we dodged a bullet this time, but it's only going to get worse. It's only going to keep escalating from here on out. And the Netherlands is going to be deploying 2 Patriot air defense batteries, NASAMS, and counter-drone systems in Poland to help Poland shoot down Russian drones. It's crazy to even talk about that Poland now has to start shooting down Russian drones. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting that following the Trump administration's strike on the Venezuelan drug boat, that the Trump administration was planning additional strikes on Venezuela or cartels and wasn't planning to ask Congress's permission. Wow. And the International Atomic Energy Agency staff at Ukraine's Khmelnytsky and Rivne nuclear power plants reported hearing drones and gunfire during Russia's mass strike on Ukraine's west, according to the IAEA director, Rafael Grossi. He said, "I'm deeply concerned about last night's events. According to our teams on the ground, these were unusually large-scale military activities close to these 2 nuclear power plants, which should never happen." The Khmelnytsky plant said it detected 9 drones flying within about 2 miles of the facility, while the Rivne operators reported 13 drones in their immediate surveillance area. Wow. So guys, it's just a matter of time before one of these hundreds and hundreds of drones that Russia launches at Ukraine will accidentally hit one of these power plants, and we're going to have a Chernobyl situation, not to mention the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. And a NATO source quoted by Reuters said that the NATO alliance does not recognize the violation of Polish territory by Russian drones as an attack. Okay, so they're not calling it an attack. They're calling it a quote-unquote violation. Absolutely insane. And what you're looking at here is a picture of a massive kaboom in Lithuania that happened the morning of this drone attack on Poland. Supposedly some kind of liquefied fuel tanker blew up. Could have been sabotage, could have been an accident, we don't know. But there were also reports of 2 violations of Lithuania's airspace when that happened. So very strange. And Poland's top general, Wiesław Kukua, said Belarus warned Poland that drones were heading in their direction through Belarus's airspace. The chief of the general staff of the Polish armed forces did not disclose the exact time of the report, but emphasized that this advance notice was helpful for us. Interesting. So Belarus actually helped Poland. I'm not sure why that was. I don't know if it's because Trump put pressure on Lukashenko, or if Lukashenko doesn't want to be subject to any retaliation. Very strange. And the Swedish defense minister spoke to the Polish defense minister, and Sweden will be offering air defense assets to help Poland. And the U.S. envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, was actually flying to Poland at the time of the Russian drone attack. Okay, so that's crazy. And Russia's drone incursion into Poland marked the first time in history that NATO aircraft engaged potential threats in Allied airspace, according to Colonel Martin O'Donnell, spokesperson for the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. NATO's Allied Air Command and the Netherlands Air Force responded and engaged potential threats to Allied territory, O'Donnell said, and the incursion prompted a multi-layered response from other NATO allies as well. Wow. And Zelensky posted on his Twitter account that according to the Ukrainian Air Force, they tracked 24 Russian drones, at least 24, 24 Russian drones that flew into Poland. And according to the German media outlet Die Welt, on Tuesday night, 5 Russian drones were on a direct flight path towards a NATO base in Poland, which is used to deliver military equipment to Ukraine. The newspaper reports that this was a deliberate action and the drones were most likely consciously directed into NATO airspace. 3 of the drones were neutralized by Dutch F-35s, and 2 others crashed under unclear circumstances. In total, according to a senior NATO officer quoted by Die Welt, between 22 and 25 drones entered Polish airspace between midnight Tuesday and Wednesday around 6:30 a.m. So that's a senior NATO officer confirming this, okay, that multiple drones were heading straight towards a NATO base. And Zelensky offered to help Poland to shoot down Russian drones by sharing Ukraine's experience with the Russian drones. And Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, condemned the Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace. He said he condemned it on the strongest terms. He called on Russia to end the dangerous escalation. I reiterate to the Polish nation and its government our full expressions of solidarity. I will soon hold a conversation with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. We will not make any compromises on the issue of the security of the Allies. Interesting. But so far there hasn't really been anything said or done. And the Polish Prime Minister said that it's time for Trump to see that Putin is mocking him. He said that Putin has abused Trump's goodwill for too long, and now Putin will only respond to strong steps. He said instead of the ceasefire that was hoped for before the Alaska summit and serious peace talks, Putin is only launching more and more drones, first against Ukraine and now against NATO. And we're hearing reports from Defense Express that Russia was apparently preparing this attack on Poland since July. Russia likely used Polish SIM cards in its drones. The material states that the Polish side was warned about such actions, including Russian tests of local mobile networks. The Russians are likely aiming for a full reconnaissance of Poland's air defense systems. Wow. And the Polish Prime Minister said that the first violation of Poland's airspace occurred on Tuesday night at 11:30 p.m. local time, and the last one was on Wednesday morning at 6:30 a.m. local time. So that's over a 7-hour period, guys. 7 hours. Absolutely insane. And what you're looking at here is a picture of an ICBM launch site and potentially storage site, missile and warhead storage site in Belarus, close to the capital of Belarus in Minsk. Okay, so apparently the Oreshnik medium-range ballistic missile will be deployed here near the capital of Belarus, and we know Russia used the Oreshnik last November, to strike Ukraine. It's possible that they may strike again in the near future. I have no doubt that they will, but this is a huge escalation. Okay, Belarus, right next to Poland, a NATO country, right next to NATO's borders, is deploying medium-range nuclear-armed missiles that can strike all of Europe. We haven't seen that since the Cold War, okay? And the EU is going to allocate 43 billion euros to Poland for their defense. So they're going to give Poland 43 billion euros. That is a red flag, guys. That means that Europe is expecting Poland to basically go to war with Russia, and they want to arm up Poland before that happens. 43 billion euros is absolutely an insane amount, okay? And the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, called the drone incursions by Russia into Poland a provocative act, which clearly is an attempt to test the U.S. and our NATO allies, adding that talks are currently ongoing on the Senate floor about additional major sanctions against Russia. And Italy's Prime Minister expressed full support for Poland following Russia's serious and unacceptable violation of its airspace. And Israel launched a strike on Yemen yesterday, targeting the Houthis again. And the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said, "We promised more strikes, and today we delivered another painful blow to the Houthis in Yemen." The IDF hit Houthi military camps in Sana'a and other parts of Yemen, including their propaganda network, as part of Operation Ringing Bells. Israel's long arm will reach and strike terror anywhere it threatens our citizens. Wow. And Israel reportedly targeted Houthi missile launch sites, the Houthi spokesman's headquarters, Houthi Ministry of Defense building, and military camps. And Qatari sources are now saying that Israel and the U.S. promised them last month that Hamas officials would not be targeted in Qatar. And Israel strikes on Hamas negotiations room in Doha failed because the Hamas leaders left to pray, leaving their phones behind, making Israeli intelligence think that they were inside. So it looks like the strike on the Hamas leadership in Doha failed, okay? They left their phones behind and went to pray. So they basically just bombed an empty room. And Netanyahu had some strong words for Qatar. He said, "I say to Qatar and all countries sheltering terrorists, expel them or bring them to justice, or we will." Wow. And Russia has called out Israel for this strike on Qatar, and they have condemned it strongly. And Qatar's prime minister told CNN there will be a collective response to Israel's strike on Hamas officials in Doha. So Qatar is really upset about that. And the UAE was caught off guard by the attack on Qatar and believes Israel is increasingly following in Iran's footsteps by becoming a threat to the region's stability. Wow. And two ex-Meta employees, Meta, the social media company owned by Mark Zuckerberg, aka Facebook owner, Jason Satizan and Case Savage, told a Senate panel that Meta ignored and even deleted evidence of child sex abuse on its VR platforms, exposing kids to sexual content, harassment, and predators while blocking research to protect profits. This was reported by NBC News. And finally, we have a U.S. aircraft carrier, the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, arriving in Oslo, Norway this week. And what's interesting is this one was up in the Barents Sea, right off the coast of Russia, off the coast of Murmansk, which is where Russia has 2/3 of their nuclear-armed submarines. So this thing was right off the coast of Russia's primary nuclear sub base, nuclear-armed subs. Okay, now what's interesting is they're talking about cooperation with civilian authorities to do some kind of exercise with the U.S. Navy and this aircraft carrier. They're saying here, receiving allies is crucial to defending Norway and the Nordic region. In a crisis situation, the armed forces will need civilian support. Therefore, total defense, that is Norway's combined civilian and military emergency resources, is crucial. The Norwegian armed forces are working closely with several actors in the total defense to welcome allies: the Norwegian Coastal Administration, the Civil Aviation Authority, the Directorate for Civil Protection and Emergency Preparedness, the Directorate for Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety have participated in the planning. Wow. Okay, so this is very, very interesting. Civil defense agencies in Norway are going to be doing some kind of exercise here. Very strange. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with a live update and live monitoring. If anything crazy happens, I will go live and update you guys live. And until the next time, check out my Patreon. Follow me on Telegram and Twitter. I've been posting over there. I post abbreviated text summaries to Patreon, and that's $5 a month. And you get access to all my videos with no ads, and you can direct message me, and also you get access to the text summaries if you can't watch the videos. Also check out some of my sponsors: EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.